I'm Dave from Wet Fly Swing. Today I'm here with Mia and Marty Sheppard. How's it going, guys?
Awesome.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah.
All right. So let's jump into. I want to start this off just getting into a little bit on your background and how you got into fly fishing. And we just talked there about how you were into snowboarding in the mid '90s. I think is when you guys met.
Mm-hmm.
So take us to that point where. So you grew up doing some fishing. How did you get into fly? Was it Marty that got you into the whole spay game and all that? Or how'd that begin for you?
So in 1996, got into fishing, and Marty and Jocelyn, good friend, taught me how on the Deschutes River.
Yeah.
And
How'd you get into spay casting?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the
So got into spay casting in 2001, roughly. So I was living in Alaska at the time, and Marty came up to visit with a couple friends, and we went out to this little bay called Johnstone, and they were fishing for coho, and Marty started spay casting, and I'd never seen it before that, and I just loved the style of it. In fact, I thought to myself, wow, that's really sexy. It's probably the first time I thought Marty was sexy. So
maybe the last.
Yeah.
So, then I came down to Oregon to visit Marty on the John Day River.
Yeah.
And
In 2002.
2002,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's when I started fly fishing.
And you caught your first
Or
steelhead
steelhead.
then.
No kidding.
2002.
Yeah.
So 96 you guys met.
Oh no.
No.
We met in the early 90s.
Early 90s. Okay.
Well, let's see. It'd be 94 we met.
Okay.
Mhm.
94, and then and you, snowboarding.
Mhm.
You were both fishing at the time. Both you were steelhead fishing, kind of in the spay game. Kind of got going. When did you start spay casting? When did that all? Was that late in the 80s?
So I started spay casting in 1990.
Okay, 1990. Yeah.
So I was 18.
Yep.
Got a job at the ski area.
Yep.
Wasn't a good learner in high school.
Yeah.
So I didn't do very good
Sure.
in high school. And I loved to skateboard and snowboard. And I went to work at the ski area. And my boss at the ski area was a guy named Steve Cruz. Now, if you read Deck Hogan's book,
Yeah.
he talks about Steve
he does,
Cruz in
okay.
there a lot. Yeah. And Steve was buddies with Deck and Ed.
Okay.
Ed Ward.
Ward, yeah.
So Steve had all these photos of Steelhead on his office wall, and my first day of work saw those and went, "Oh, I'm going to bring in some photos of some of the Steelhead I caught."
Uh-huh.
But I was a gear fisherman.
Oh, nice.
I grew up a gear fisherman.
Sure.
You know, and I don't have any qualms with how anybody fishes because my dad's a bait fisherman and
Yep.
I love him.
Yeah.
You know, So I brought in some photos to Steve, and he goes, "Those are some nice steelhead. Why don't you let me show you how to catch them with some sole, and you show me where you got those things?"
Okay.
You know, and so he gave me my first lesson in 1990.
Okay.
And I didn't really catch it first. Like I didn't really go full fledged from then on out.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, that
Right.
was fun. That was cool.
So you were gear fishing, and the 1st thing you start off was spay casting.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I didn't really do single-handed
There you go.
casting. I
Yep.
started out.
And do you do it now? Any single-handed casting?
Oh, lots.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was funny. You go to Montana and people want to do micro spay, and that's cool and all,
Right.
but it's
Yeah.
I want a single hand cast.
Yeah.
Because it's new
Uh-huh.
or fresh for
Yeah.
me. And so, trout fishing, we use single handers here. Bass fishing, we use single handers here. And we love to go saltwater fishing for tarpon. We love to go saltwater fishing. One day, I hope to catch a permit. I pretty much don't think they exist. I've gone and tried and tried and tried and tried.
Nice.
And I love throwing single handers. I love fly fishing.
Yeah.
I love fishing with bamboo rods and fiberglass rods and two-handed rods and single-handed rods.
Pretty much anything fly fishing.
Yeah.
And what do you think? So you're gear fishing. I mean, what was because some people gear fish their whole lives. I mean, why do you think you made the change to fly? What was the biggest thing that got you? Made you switch. And did you switch? Well, you didn't switch just like that. You kind of did a little.
It was a long transition to switch. Like I would try to spay cast and try to catch a steelhead, and it was just impossible. It felt like, it's it's really hard to catch a steelhead with a fly in the 90s. in the winter, you know, and that's what I was trying to
90s
do.
were tough years, right?
I don't know if they were or
Yeah.
not. I mean, we really didn't pay attention to
Yeah.
that. It was just like you would just go and go and go and
Yeah.
not catch anything, and then
Right.
like pull out the gear rod and catch one.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I kept going back to it based on the challenge, you know. And so, like skiing or snowboarding, which we were doing a lot of then, you start out on like the bunny hill, and that becomes boring really quick, and you go to the blue hill, and the blue hill is a little more challenging, but that gets boring really quick.
Yeah.
And so you go to the Black Diamond Hill, and it's like you just keep challenging yourself.
Right.
And with anything that's hard, there's a lot of gratification when you finally succeed at anything that's hard. And so I eventually caught a steelhead on a swung fly in the winter on a general practitioner on Sandy. Yeah, and it was like the most amazing day of my life. It was like the feeling of catching that. I'd caught hundreds of steelhead on gear since I was a little kid. Yeah. My dad, we lived on the river. We fished it all the time. But that one steelhead changed my life.
Yeah.
That one on the swung fly in the middle of winter, you know, and Cruz had taught me 2 or 3 years previously how to spay cast. So
were you fishing a real heavy, down and dirty, get down the bottom swinging stuff, or were you just...
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I remember the fish, though.
Okay.
You know, and it changed me.
Yeah.
It was like the feeling of that accomplishment, like I felt like I accomplished something, like I did something significant in my life. Like I didn't have that same feeling from catching with a steelhead with a spoon or corky and yarn,
right?
You know, drifting. And so then I was full on into it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. And so both of you now, so you learned from Marty how to do it. How to spay, how to do the cat, and you are you a spay-o-rama, like you competed, right?
Yep, yeah, I've competed 6 times, I think, and won it 3 years.
So you are a champion spay. So how do you go from?
I love it.
So I can't remember the exact dates, but somewhere in the mid-90s, you pick this up, and now you're a champion. I mean, that shows that you don't have to do this thing your entire life to get good at it. What do you think is the reason that you've excelled?
Well, it is a lot of practice.
Yeah.
It takes a tremendous amount of practice. I started in 2002, and Marty taught me the basics. And for many years, I had bad habits. And then in 2009, I think it was when I decided to start practicing for spay-o-rama, was when I realized what a shitty caster I was, and I went, yeah, this is really humbling. It humbled me to go, wow, I don't know how to cast.
I honestly think that before you took on the challenge of going to spay-o-rama, that before that you just fly fished because it was a good excuse to be around me. Like I felt like you weren't emotionally attached to fly fishing. I felt like you just kind of, like could we go fishing and then go on a hike later? You know, and I was like, yeah, we could do that. And I felt like when you decided to like, hey, look, there's a competition where you can go and do this, and you started getting good at it because you started practicing at it, and all of a sudden our lives changed to the better because of the fact that.
So can I talk?
Wasn't finished.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah. She's got her voice back.
Okay, here.
This is good.
But you didn't let me finish.
Stop it.
Exactly. I think he was trying to save you from the cough. But you're good.
Oh, you were trying to.
Yeah.
So you're gonna edit this?
Exactly. No, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. This is great.
Don't edit it.
This is great.
I'm gonna give you water.
Are you? Yeah. No, are you gonna be?
No. Well. Yeah. So don't edit it.
More words.
You had 2 more words.
It's perfect. No, this is a great. Let it roll.
But
all of a sudden we went from.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We went from. You all of a sudden had this passion for like casting, and then that all of a sudden turned you into a better angler. And because you were a better angler, you started planning fishing trips. Like you went from like not much emotional attachment to it to like super emotionally invested in it.
Yeah, when we first bought our business, I definitely, when we bought Little Creek Outfitters in 2003, we had a goal of selling it in 10 years.
No kidding.
Yeah. So none of us had ever ran a business. We didn't know anything about running a business. I was never aspiring to be a guide. This was just a job. I mean,
so what
literally,
were you doing at that time? At that moment when you bought the business?
So in 2003, I was going to school, trying to get a degree in some sort of environmental science. I worked seasonal jobs with like Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Zigzag Forest Service doing fishery work, waited tables at ski areas. I was still really passionate about snowboarding. Like snowboarding was my first gig. And we bought this business and I'm like, okay, well, I guess now I'm going to start, doing this, guiding bass and part-time. And then it's funny, it really didn't, and I occasionally it's like, okay, we'll go on fishing trips and it was fun and all, but I wasn't passionate about it until honestly when our daughter was born. When our daughter was born in 2007, I something clicked and I went, wow, like we have a huge opportunity here. Like this is an opportunity. Like we own a business.
And were you living here?
No, we were living in Welch's.
Oh, in Welch's. Okay.
So I just went, this is a huge opportunity to, why not start expanding? Why not get better at spate casting and doing this, really fun thing that gets me out on the water? Because I love just being on the water. And so in 2007, Tegan was born. And that's really when I went, I want to get better at casting. I started paying attention more, asking people for lessons. Some of those folks were Mike Kenny and Brian Sylvie and Al Burr and Marty, Dwight Clem. And so there was a lot of influence. Mariusz. So it was so that was 2007, Tegan was born, and I started, I remember Marty even saying, like for years, he's like, oh, you can guide Steelhead, you can do it. I'm like, I don't want to.
Know.
Like, I don't want to do it because there can be an emotional attachment to catching fish.
Yeah.
And I needed to get past that. I'm like, I don't want to guide Steelhead. And so it wasn't until probably 2008 when I started guiding and I had to, and Marty was the one who said, you got to disconnect yourself from the emotion of catching a steelhead. And
what do you mean by that? Disconnect yourself from
you just can't be so, I mean, it's, of course, we all love catching fish. I love catching steelhead and it is an emotional process, but as a guide, if you're just focusing on like, we have to catch a fish and get those numbers.
And if you don't, it's going to be a terrible trip.
Then exactly. And it isn't about that. It's the whole process. There's so much more.
So if you had trips, I mean, now you've guided a lot for all these different species. I mean, have you had some trips where you get skunked out there?
Oh.
and what
yes, many.
Sorry. We have this discussion a lot.
Exactly. No, because it's a good, because I've done.
And just recently.
I've done a little bit of guiding, very little, but I really didn't enjoy it. I hated it because I always had that pressure on myself. It was always like, man, I got this pressure.
Yeah.
I got to get, and if I didn't have a good trip,
you have to separate
I felt terrible.
yourself.
You have to separate yourself from that emotional attachment of getting your client into a fish. So,
if I could add to that.
Marty can talk now.
Yeah. This is good because we do have people that listen to this. They're guides or that want to become guides. They want to get going.
Yes,
because hearing this, I think, can help people.
So we choose to target steelhead in the most challenging way I know how. And with that said, there's probably easier ways to catch steelhead. You could nymph an egg pattern from a boat. You can use a spinning rod. You can target steelhead in ways. But one of the most difficult ways to catch steelhead, and it takes the most skill and luck, is to swing up a fish. And swinging a steelhead, in my mind, is the ultimate challenge. And when you don't succeed trying it the hardest way possible, you can walk out of that day with your head held high.
Right.
And so that's where you have to separate yourself is, if I don't catch a steelhead today, swinging flies for steelhead, or if my clients don't, I can walk away proud.
That's right. Because they still learned something that
and there's a lot of like gratification in doing something that's hard and having that accomplishment. So what I always like hang my hat on is, well, we're going to catch steelhead, so we're going to fly. It
Yeah.
might be the next cast, and it might be the next one after that.
Yeah.
And if it's not that one, it's going to be the next one after that. And if it's not that one, but eventually you do catch one.
Yeah.
And it feels so
Yeah,
good
it
to
does.
finally get that off your back. And,
Right.
you know, there's a lot of limiting factors to success. Are there fish in the river? Are they grabby? Are they fresh?
Yeah.
Are the conditions perfect? Are the conditions bad? Are there no fish in the river? You know, and so all these things factor into it. And I've had some great days when everything shouldn't line up. And I've had terribly hard, struggling days when everything should line up.
Right.
And anywhere in between.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
yesterday, I guided a guy who had never spay casted before. He was not doing well. He made a really good cast and got one.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
And
That's cool.
chrome bright wild hen. And I just looked at that guy in the eyes after we netted, tailed, released the fish, and said, you realize what you just did was really special. Yeah. And he looked at me and he goes, I do. Yeah. And that meant a lot to me to realize how special that was. And I said, hopefully this ruins you. And you spend the rest of your life trying to figure out how you did what you just did.
Right.
You
That's
know?
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, because it's not. Yeah, because you will still. Even you, probably both of you, have those days that are still tough.
Yeah, I just spent
all the time.
I just spent the 3 days before that guided 2, and then I was out one day fishing really hard on my own, and I haven't seen anything in 3 days.
Exactly.
And was in British Columbia before that for 5 days and had one grab.
Yeah.
But 2 of the people I was with got lucky and they hooked fish. So it's so random, and you just have to keep going out there and just not lose confidence. And my friend Adrian said that, you know, this is the definition of insanity is going after something and repeatedly doing something over and over again, looking for a different result. Right. I think, you know, we
do get a different result.
But you eventually do,
yeah.
But it might take a while.
Yeah.
And sometimes. Yeah.
So it's almost insanity.
It's
almost insanity. Exactly.
But steelhead fishing is insane at times.
It is. No, it's good. I know. I think anybody that's listening to this, they know what we're talking about here. Yeah.
Look, here's the if we base our lives judging each other from social media accounts, we're really doomed. Because the image that we try to set forth is that, like, look, we're having this massive success, like we're always catching steelhead, like here's another photo.
Right.
And truly our success comes from pure determination and opportunity. And we have opportunity because we have clients that book trips with us day in and day out. We're working 5 days a week all winter long.
Huh.
And we're gonna catch some fish doing that.
Yep.
So our success comes from lots and lots and lots of time on the water.
When you look at the time, say the sandy or the winter fish, do you find you're probably doing a similar run most of the time?
Yeah.
Are you finding that you're getting, you know, the 80-20, getting 80% of the fish out of these small little buckets of these spots, or are you finding fish throughout different runs all day long?
Yeah, maybe more like 90%.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So you got
they come from very specific spots.
Because you might have half a dozen spots you hit during a day or something like that, and then those are your key spots. You know, that's where fish hold.
You start when you're out there all the time. You start to learn what fish is better at what water level, and then you can hone in on those spots. And that's you know the biggest recommendation I could give somebody is you know, just get out there and get to know your water and fish the same spot over and over again, and see. You know, and pay attention to the water level on the USGS site, and you know, write down those CFS, and then start fishing those spots. When you catch one at 1,000, then you know that's a spot where you can get them at 1,000. And if you fish it at 5,000, it might not fish as well.
Yep. Yeah. So,
there's very few random fish. They do exist when they're moving.
Yeah.
But when they're moving, they're hard to catch, and so. Holding fish is a much easier fish to target and catch. And there's certain places they like to hold. Yeah. The hydraulics are right, the water, there's lots and lots and lots of different opportunities. There's also lots of places where they hold where our flies just won't present right to them. So those are the hardest ones. It's like, we float over these pods of fish every day. And at low, clear water, we see them. Yeah. And there's spots where we catch them out of those spots.
Even on the low clear days.
It's harder when it's low and clear.
Yeah.
But there's also spots where you just can't catch them out of there. I don't know why. And
Yeah.
the fly may not present right to them, or it just doesn't get in their zone, or just something about it doesn't work.
Yep.
So you got to find, as a steelheader, the things that work for you. And then go back to that well.
Yeah.
Because that well's got water in it,
That's right.
you know?
That's
and
right.
so,
keep going back.
yeah.
Well, I wanted to, I mean, that's the tough thing is that we're on the Deschutes. We're talking about the same. These are all rivers that, you know, I'd love to talk more about. Maybe if we have time then we can get into it. But I did want to talk about the John Day because that's another one that I think is maybe not on a lot of people's radar. You know, I know there's bass. You do some bass trips, and then there's steelhead. I was hoping we can talk a little about just how you catch steelhead on the John Day. And maybe you could break down what a day, you know. So you're here. You're heading over the John Day because that's a big water dependent, the longest free flowing river in the state, right? So you have all these issues with water, low flows and too high flows.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how you catch steelhead over there? And I don't know whoever wants to take the, or you both, or
I mean,
I don't even know because I'm not sure who fishes more over there. You fish to hit the bass stuff, or
we both work over there a lot.
Okay, you both do.
Guiding steelhead.
We both do.
And we kind of do different things.
Yeah, so Marty focuses more on the multi-day trips. I'll do one if I can get on it, and then I'll do day trips, and that's just because of the logistics of being a parent.
Oh, right.
And so someone has to be around Tegan and get her to school,
Gotcha.
and so it's convenient for me to do day trips.
Yeah.
And occasionally, though, she'll go spend a week with a friend, and then I get to go on a multi-day trip. But
oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So on a multi-day trip, that might be a 3-nighter or something. Four nights.
4 days, 5 days.
And is that is the John Day? I mean, people can do their research to get over there, but is there a lot of traffic over there? I mean, when you're fishing.
Well, there's more and more and more than there used to be, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, there's some more public access than there used to be. Western Rivers has bought some large ranches and you know, transferred that land over to public agencies, and that has definitely driven more traffic.
Right.
So there's more opportunity to get on that river, and
is it boat traffic and foot traffic?
Yeah,
both.
Yeah, both.
Okay. What is it? Is it similar to, you know, if the Deschutes are out here for summer steelhead? You know, if you think about, if you know the Deschutes swinging flies, is it pretty much the same sort of?
It's not even close.
Yeah, maybe you can explain how you catch steelhead over there.
Yeah.
Then.
So one of the things that let's just look at both rivers and how they're built differently. The Deschutes is a tailwater that has a dam on it. It's controlled. The water levels stay relatively stable here at around 4,500 CFS. The John Day is a long, free-flowing river, has irrigation on it. It has no control, though, over water flows, and it's a much more gradual river with a lot less water in it. Okay. So what it has is average flows during steelhead season are 450 CFS. So what is that, 10% of what the Deschutes is?
Wow, that's average. So you might get a 2,000 CFS event, and then you might get down to what, 100 or something?
I would not say that you might get a 2,000.
Oh, really?
I don't know that I've ever seen a fall over there where the river got at 2,000.
No.
Yep.
If you got up to 800, I would be surprised.
Yeah.
We just don't have a lot of the precipitation that comes in the fall gets soaked into the ground.
Gotcha. So it's pretty low flow, and is it clear? Is it clear water?
So they irrigate the river from about June 1st through October 1st.
That's right.
And so they shut off irrigation October 1st, and the river slowly rises. But we've seen it at 50 CFS.
Yeah.
At the end of September.
So when is the prime time for steelhead fishing there?
November.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So that is a different, because you think about the fish here, you've got a July through the summer.
See, what people need to realize is that the John Day runs really low.
Yeah, that's the
by July.
Gotcha.
20th, most years we're down below 100 CFS, cubic feet per second.
Yeah.
And if we have any drought conditions, which we live in the desert, that's what we have, is drought conditions.
Exactly, yeah.
From late July through September, that river will get down to 50 CFS.
That's it. Wow.
So and that's not abnormal.
Yeah.
It's not
it's just a natural system.
It's just natural.
Well, there's irrigation.
It's probably how the Deschutes would be if it didn't have a dam on it.
Right.
You know?
That's right.
And so it might be a little more because the Metolius really runs cold and heavy. But the John Day will then slowly creep up after the irrigation shut off. And so it can go from 50 CFS to 250 in about 3 weeks.
Yeah. Wow.
So now we're at
Yeah.
late October.
Yeah.
And after late October, those fish will start coming in because of that small bump in water from 50 CFS to 250 CFS. And if you get a little moisture or a little rain, it can come up to 400 CFS. That's when you really want to start targeting it, because the river's going to actually swing your flies.
Yeah.
You see, at 250 CFS, your flies just don't even swing.
Yeah.
The John Day is like a series of lakes and shallow riffles.
Oh wow.
At 250 CFS.
No kidding.
Into a lake of a shallow
So how are
riffle.
you? So where are you hitting the fish? Where are you swinging the fish up?
It's really hard at 250 CFS. So that's why we wait till November.
Okay. So at 400,
it's a lot more viable to swing a fly.
Gotcha.
And so, because you got to realize that the Chutes or the Sandy or the North Umpqua or all these rivers are built different. The John Day is built where it's long pools, a mile long.
So are you fishing just certain sections of these pools or the tail outs, or like
we're fishing
usually early in the season? You can fish the riffles, of course, and the water's going to be a little bit warmer. And then as the season progresses, and the river comes up 100 CFS, you can start fishing those a little bit longer and down into the slow water.
Gotcha.
So
especially when it gets cold.
Yeah, when it gets cold, you can fish. You can literally smoke a cigar and swing a run and still not be done swinging.
Okay, yeah, you can spend all day in one run.
Yeah,
when the water gets cold,
they fish that slow water.
They go to the deeper, more structured parts. So the type of characteristics I look for as an angler on the John Day or a guide on the John Day are the middle of a deep pool where a canyon comes in. Because where a canyon comes in, there's going to be structure.
Yeah.
So they're gonna lay where there's depth and structure.
Yeah.
Now, even if there's not a current that will swing your fly, they'll still lay there.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a current that just barely swings the fly where there's depth and structure, that's where we catch our fish.
And are you fishing just dry lines, small flies, typical summer steelhead?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, it changes as the temperature changes. So we use skaters.
Yeah.
When the river is 48 degrees.
So earlier on, you're skating, and then as you get into the later, colder.
By Thanksgiving, the water's usually down to 36 degrees.
Wow.
So,
holy cow.
And by December, the river usually freezes over.
There you go. Okay, so you're not fishing, and then by spring, they're getting into spawning and all that. So you're done fishing by...
It's a month season.
By December.
Oh, wow, okay. So that's it. So you go to November. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
It's a short little season.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've seen the river freeze over December 3rd, December 10th, like solid.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha. Okay.
And then it doesn't defrost until end of January.
Yeah. So without giving away any spots people can figure out if they want to go over there and hit it up themselves, but any tips on fishing the John Day other than what we just talked about there, if they wanted to try to go out there for their first time and find a fish? Anything special that you might tell somebody?
Anything special?
I mean, you could do it
in terms of access or just
if you had an access tip or
access has always been a challenge until recently. Like Marty said, Western Rivers purchased a large piece of property, and then it turned into Cottonwood State Park, and so that now provides access.
That's right.
And that's a good place to go. And then there's Rock Creek, which is down on the lower river. That's another public access spot. And in terms of tips, it's steelhead fishing. Just get out there and go. Bring an arsenal of gear. Just have a Scandi line and a Skagit line, and pay attention to water temperatures.
Flows. So you think that 400 is if you had to say one flow, you want it the best?
Yeah, you want to start fishing it. I really encourage people, you want to fish it above 400 CFS.
Okay. Because
it gives the fish an opportunity to move, and not they're able to have some space to move around.
Okay. And is there camping? Plenty of camping over there? I guess at this place is there.
Cottonwood State Park has camping.
So there's actually campgrounds. Could you literally drive in like an RV sort of thing, or is it more tent? Yeah. You could.
Yeah, as long as it's self-contained. Yeah. There's not sewage there.
This sounds pretty cool to me. I mean, I love the unimproved. You know, it's like you're in your boat. You camp wherever you want. You can have that experience. So it sounds like that this is a good place for that if you wanted to do something like that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
It's a huge state park.
It's
about
huge.
16 miles of river.
Wow, holy cow!
But you can't just drive up and down that 16 miles.
No, you got to walk.
Yeah, that's
which is
the
great
thing.
though, because that's your whole thing. Walk 2 miles upstream, you're away from the most people. So that's good. Okay. Now the John Day is unique, kind of unique because you know, bass. So bass or steelhead, which one is better?
Steelhead.
Steelhead, right. But you guys, you do a lot of bass fishing trips.
But bass are a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
They're so much fun.
Yep.
And it's a nice change of pace to be able to target a species that will just take any fly. Right. It doesn't matter. You throw it out there, you throw out a popper, strip it in, and they just hammer it.
And these are smallmouth bass.
Smallmouth bass.
Can I tell you a story?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I was at a trade show. And
which one?
I think it was San Mateo back in the day. It was maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
And, you know, there's all kinds of characters at these trade shows. There's guys giving presentations. But some of them are really, like, legends that you can't miss them. And so Lefty Cray walks by the booth that we're working at, and I say, "Hi, Lefty." And he looks at me and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I don't know him.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, we're selling guide trips." And he says, "Oh, well," he sees a picture of a bass on our on our background, and he shakes my hand, and he looks at his hand after he shakes it, and he goes, "This man stole my ring," to everybody around.
No way.
Yeah, and I'm like embarrassed, and he's like, "I'm just kidding you, kid," you know. And he says to me, he goes, "Do you have a second to talk?" And I go, "Well, yeah, I'd love to talk with you," you know. And he says, "Okay, let's get away from all these people." And he kind of brings me over to the corner of the hallway there, and he says, "Do you see all these people walking by?" I say, "Yeah." And he says, "Most of them want to catch a trout."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Here's the thing about trout." He says, "When a trout comes up and eats your dry fly, your heart goes pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter." He says, "That is awesome. That's why they love it. It gets their heart going, gets their adrenaline going. That's why they love it." Now, here's what I want you to tell these people that come up and go, "Smallmouth bass? What are you doing that for?" He said, "Because when a smallmouth comes up and eats your popper, it explodes and you have a heart attack."
Yeah.
And he walked away. I've never talked to him since.
Really?
You know? Yeah.
That was your one time with Lefty?
That was my only time I ever talked to Lefty, and he was so excited to tell me about how, you know, a bass taking a dry fly is like the best thing ever.
Yeah, because he's done it all, but he
loves bass fishing. And I'll tell you what, any fish that eats surface fly, in my book, is a worthy opponent.
Exactly.
It's so fun.
I hear you.
So much fun.
And so you know, you hear these stories about the shoots and the salmon fly hatch.
Yeah.
And you hear the stories of the Madison and the Mother's Day caddis hatch.
Yep.
And you hear these stories of all these famous hatches.
Right.
But there's a famous hatch on the John Day for smallmouth bass that no one talks about.
No kidding.
And it's really epic.
No kidding.
It's called the Dragonfly Hatch.
The Dragonfly Hatch.
Yeah.
Which is, and when is that?
Cool.
When is the?
It's usually starts around the end of June and goes through the first few weeks of July.
Exactly.
And it is absolutely amazing.
Wow.
Here's why. Do you want to tell them why?
Well, the bass are literally cartwheeling out of the water just to catch them.
Wow.
They try to catch them in the air.
They are. It's so cool.
Awesome.
So much fun.
Holy cow. So this is, I mean, right here, this sounds like steelhead are great, but
it's so fun.
So you're starting to convince me that maybe that initial question, steelhead versus bass, that maybe bass might be.
They're just different.
Yeah.
So
different.
Bass is like our ultimate
aggressive.
revenge on like how hard steelheading is, because bass fishing is not hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Bass fishing, we offer these like fully guided trips. We offer these self-guided trips. On our self-guided trips, we provide the boats, we provide the camp, we provide the food, we provide everything. It's just like a fully guided trip.
Yeah.
But we literally, the John Day is so easy to row that we would just throw like our daughter who's 11 in one of the boats and go for it. We'll see you at camp. You know, it's like, and she could probably guide herself and do 50 bass in a day.
And the weather's great.
Yeah.
It's so perfect for kids. And we've been guiding kids since the
Yeah.
beginning of time, and
So
we're
is
now.
this is the kids camp
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
Because I want to dig into this a little bit too. And you do all those mostly on the John Day?
Yeah, so on the John Day, and this year we're doing a teen summer camp on the Deschutes as well. But yeah, we're doing a kids camp on the John Day for 6th through 8th graders, and it's 5 days, 4 nights, and it's just getting them outdoors and teaching them about rafting and water safety and fishing and camping and
wow. And is it just the kids, no parents?
No parents.
So it's just you two doing this with
just the kids.
So it's us, and then
we
this
have an
year
educator.
super excited
you
to
have an
hire
educator.
our good friend Kiki, who has an environmental science background, and she's gonna be provide professional instruction on all the environmental side.
Kiki Cruz, her dad taught me how to speak.
Yeah.
Wow, there you go.
We've seen Kiki like grow up, and we've fished with her since she was probably 9. She started coming on bass trips. So she was just a little kid.
This segues into a good story about how we bought our company.
Oh, wow. Good. Yeah. This is perfect. Well, let me... so let's finish up on the kid stuff, because I'm interested, and then we'll go into the company story. Because, that was one thing, the Little Creek Outfitters, I definitely wanted to hear about that, because that wasn't a company that you necessarily started. You bought it, so that's a cool story. But yeah, so with the kids, so take me to, you have these 3-day trip. What is it like? You get these kids day one. Can you take me through what that's like? For the kids, say if you're a kid, what do you expect for a trip like this?
Well, so the first day, parents, they follow us to the river, and
so they meet you on the John Day.
Yeah, they meet us on the John Day, and you can tell the kids are really shy and they're a little nervous.
And are some of these kids kind of like have never been on a river in their life, lived in the city the whole?
Yeah. There's a couple that have never been on.
Because that's kind of a safety thing there, right? I mean, there's a drowning thing. There's rattlesnakes. There's
So we definitely take a lot of safety precautions, and kids have to wear their life jackets. It's a requirement.
Do you have any sort of push the EPIRB and a helicopter flies in and takes them to the hospital?
Yeah. We carry it's an InReach.
Yep.
So a Garmin InReach, and so kids, we give it the safety talk, and they hop in boats, and we paddleboard as well.
Oh wow!
So we provide a couple of paddle boards, and in all these kids have never. They don't have any rowing experience, and by the last day, they're all like fighting to take over the paddleboard.
And you have rafts.
Rafts. Yeah, so rafts and
rafts.
Yep.
No drift boats on this section.
No what?
Oh, it's too low for drift boats, right?
It depends.
Well, it depends on the water level.
Okay.
But the kids, I remember two boys on a trip. You could tell they didn't want to be there at first. They were just like, my parents forced us to be here. Don't want to be here. And by the last day, we do I just had a little.
All I know is those two boys that don't want to be here want to come back.
They want to come back, and we do a little talent show on the last day.
Oh, no kidding.
And it's amazing how you just see these kids blossom, and they're building their confidence. They're by the end, they're like, we want to come back and do this.
And are some of these kids, the parents are not outdoors people, and that's kind of an interesting dynamic too. I imagine a lot of them are, and maybe
So that this year, I've been talking to quite a few moms, and I've heard the story of like, I want to send my son on this because we don't have the camping gear, and we don't have the time, and we have to work,
or we want a break. Maybe a break from the kids, a vacation or something like that.
Or I'm a single mom and I just don't have the resources. And so this year we're offering scholarships as well to get 4 kids on these trips.
And how many kids total do you
12
take?
On each trip, and that's we're limited because of our permit. So we're limited to 16.
So you actually have a guide permit for that river.
Yeah, so the John Day Deschutes, you have to have what's called a special recreational permit.
That's right.
And so we have that, and under that permit,
we have one on the Grand Ronde.
Yeah.
John Day, Deschutes.
Okay.
And the Oahe.
And the Oahe. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, this is pretty interesting because it was funny because Megan, my partner, we had been talking about doing this exact thing.
Okay.
It's so funny because I talked about the guiding is that I didn't really like guiding. But she really, she's told our kids are 5 and 7, and she's just told, we're into them, and that's her whole life is the kids, but we're trying to figure out a way for something that she can do,
Mhm.
you know. And she just kind of came up with this idea, actually, before we even talked, out of the blue.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, that sounds like an interesting idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
take kids out." And it wasn't the exact thing, but
Yeah.
basically take kids to a fly fishing camp.
Yeah.
Teach them how to fish and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
this sounds
So-
like it's a little more. But would you have a tip for, you know, somebody that was maybe going to start something up and do something similar?
Well, first I got to say that it's so important to get kids outdoors, especially in this era of video games and kids are playing more inside. And if we're going to, you know, find people to be the next stewards and advocates of the places that we love, you know, we got to teach our kids. We got to get them stoked on the outdoors, and we got to do it in a fun way.
Right.
And for somebody that's wanting to start a camp or do something like this, it's really just, you know, look to your community, and just
Yeah. So the community, that's and we've been talking a little bit with some of the community and asking people. I guess it's probably hard to find people that will say it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
But we've been asking a few people, like, what do you think of this? And most of them are like, oh, this is great.
it's
we're
a great idea. I don't
Yeah.
think there's so many kids out there,
Yeah.
and you know, the more opportunity that they have to have an experience like that, then that's great.
That's cool.
It's so
You know,
awesome.
Yeah.
You know, we have an 11-year-old.
Yeah. So,
And you have,
yeah.
you know, a couple little ones
Yeah.
that are 5 and what?
5 and 7.
5 and
Yeah.
7. And, you know, we were that age.
Yeah.
We were 11.
That's
we were
right.
5.
Oh,
we
yeah.
were 7.
Yeah, I remember. Do you guys remember it like it was
Oh,
yesterday?
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, and so the opportunities that we had then
Mhm.
molded us
Mhm.
to be where we are today. And, you know, it fits into like our guide philosophy, not only from like trying to do these kids camps, which is new to us. Like we're
Yeah.
3 years in
Okay,
to
3
it.
years in. Gotcha.
Yeah. And we're slowly growing it to
Yeah.
where we foresee it being, but we have a long ways to go with what
Mhm.
we want to do there.
Yeah.
But going back, like our guard philosophy with, you know, 60-year-old men is like they were 11 once. And fishing, in my viewpoint, should be treated like we're all children.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's really fun and fascinating. And the sense of exploration that kids have,
Mhm.
it's in all of us, no matter what our age is.
That's right.
And so if we all treat fishing like we're kids,
Yeah.
do you know how much fun that is?
Right.
Do you know how much
Yeah.
fun you have if you approach the river like an 11-year-old and not a
It's-
70-year-old? You
It's
know?
so
Like
fun.
exploring. And,
Yes.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
I think people tend to take it too seriously
Yeah.
a lot,
Yeah.
and you just have to be a kid again.
Exactly.
And I pride myself on being,
Yeah.
you know, the oldest immature person
That's
in the
right.
boat at
Well,
times.
and that's a good tip too, because I mean, the observing thing is something that
That's-
comes up on a lot
yeah.
of my podcasts with the guests. I ask about a tip in observation,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. I know. I mean, I've kind of struggled with that because I've always done something and like, okay, I know how to do it, but observing what's going on is a
Yeah,
big part
there's
of it.
so many intricacies of the outdoors, and if you just stop and listen and look around, it's like you see the geese
Yeah.
honking
That
overhead, or you
10-year-old's alive
see
in all of us.
Oh, yeah.
it
exactly.
is,
It never goes away.
and fly fishing can bring it out if
Yeah.
you allow it to, if you
Right.
allow yourself to be a kid again.
Yeah.
And it's okay to make a bad cast, or it's, you know, you don't have to get out there and look like a hero.
Yeah.
Just have fun
That's
and,
right.
and make mistakes,
Yeah.
because when you make mistakes, you learn.
Exactly.
So,
That's great. Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's go back to this story because you had a story about how the business came
Mm.
to be. Maybe you can
Right,
tell.
well-
and what was the connection? I can't remember exactly.
Kiki Cruise.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Kiki.
You want to tell the
So-
story
Yeah.
there?
So I worked at Timberline for 12 years.
And you were a ski instructor.
No. I had all kinds of different jobs.
And so, but during that time,
Yeah.
before you got into guiding, and
Yeah.
you were, how'd you make your living?
It's scary.
That was it. So working, you were
Yeah.
pretty much okay.
Yeah, and so my boss loved to fly fish, taught me how to spay cast,
there you go. That's right.
Steve, and I had lots of good jobs at the ski area, and you know, could do different things. But I'm going to kind of dive into this whole story because it all comes around. So in 2001, I went to Alaska to go fishing where Mia said.
Oh yeah.
So coming back around.
And where was this in Alaska?
Mia was living in Girdwood, but we went to fish Little Johnstone
Stone
Bay.
Bay.
Is this like Southeast Alaska? Or?
Yeah, it's in Prince
Mhm.
William Sound.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we've gone up there and went fishing and had it, and it was just a vacation. But we were scheduled to fly out on 9/11, 2001.
Wow.
That didn't happen.
Jeez.
Yeah, a couple planes, hit some big buildings.
So you were
in
up
New
there
York.
in Alaska when that happened.
We were flying out. Mia was literally driving. She was living in Alaska. She was driving my buddy Tim and myself to the airport to fly home.
Yeah.
And we stopped at a gas station, and Mia knew somebody at the gas station because I think it was like where you lived. And they were like, "Where are you going?" And Mia was like, "Oh, I'm taking these guys to the airport." And they're like, "You might want to look at the news."
Mm-hmm.
And so we went and looked at the news, and it was like tragic, you know, and shocking. And we ended up staying in Alaska for 2 or 3 weeks, and
because flights were canceled.
Yeah, and so when I came back, finally made it home. I'd missed work for 3 weeks or something, and my bosses at work had booked a Grand Ronde trip. And that Grand Ronde trip was with this outfitter named John Eklund at Little Creek Outfitters.
Oh.
And I think they wanted to do like 4 people or 6 people on the trip. And the outfitter could only do 4 or something like that. Or somehow or another, they brought me along as like the 3rd guide.
Oh, wow. And you had never guided?
No. And it was awesome. The Grand Ronde was beautiful. Like, it was with my bosses.
This is like a November Steelhead
trip. It was like late October.
Yeah.
And the outfitter, John Eklund, he was a fascinating guy and a funny storyteller and a hilarious dude. But his history was cool. He had like guys like Bill McMillan work for him.
Oh, really?
He had Deck Hogan guiding for him. He had this.
So was he the main?
Lorianne
Murphy,
Patty
Riley.
So was he the main Grand Ronde fly guide?
Yeah, but he had a Deschutes permit, a John Day permit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, he goes, "You should come back and do a couple trips with me as a guide."
Wow.
And my bosses, who are all drinking whiskey, are going,
yeah.
"Yeah, you should do it."
Really?
You know? Yeah. And so I'm like, "Okay, I'll come back and do it." You know. And so I came back and started.
Came back that season?
Yeah, the next trip.
The next trip,
And guided.
Cool. And, and at that time, what year is this?
01.
01. So you you just had started spade casting a couple years before.
Well, no, about 10 years.
Oh, 10 years before, yeah. So you've been doing this a while.
Yeah, 11 years.
So you're good at.
Yeah.
You just hadn't guided.
I had just done a trip on my own to Alaska to catch silvers on spade casting. Yeah.
Totally.
Then that's where Mia first saw it and said, that's kind of sexy.
That's right. I got you. Okay, so at this point, you got 10 years of spay and you're good. It's just the guiding thing is new to you.
Yeah, but I had been taking people fishing for years, and that's why those guys had confidence in me to like be the 3rd guide. And so, let's see, John Eklund, who owned Little Creek Outfitters, he loved to go to Cuba.
Oh, wow.
And he would go with Filippo and these guys that run Avalon, these Italian guys that run the Cuba operation. He would go 2 or 3 times a year. He loved to go to Cuba. But after 9/11, Homeland Security was formed by George W.
Yep.
And old Eklund, he hated George W. because of that. Because it made it really hard for him to go to Cuba.
Oh, that's right.
And so he literally, like, I came and did a couple bass trips with him. I did the next year, 2002 Steelhead trips. Mia came down. We started the John Day Steelhead program. Mia came down and was hanging out with us during 2002. Like, I think you spent the whole Steelhead season hanging out
I was
at what we call the Garage Mahal in Condon, Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
And Eklund comes to me and he goes, "If George W. gets reelected, I'm moving to Argentina."
No way.
Yeah. And I go, "Oh, okay. Whatever."
Yeah.
And George W. got reelected, and he goes, I'm doing it. I'm moving to Argentina. You're going to buy my company." I go, "I am?"
Wow.
You know? And Mia and I don't know, we've been dating like 6 months maybe, and I'm like, "Hey, maybe we should like look into this." We didn't have any money.
Yeah.
You know, we're broke. Sure. We're ski area employees
you're ski bums.
and fishing guides, you know, like, and so we looked at it, we checked it out, and I wrote up like a semi-business plan, like, okay, here's how we would pay it back if we were able to borrow the money.
Yeah.
He wanted a big amount of money for it, but it came with boats and a full client list, and it came with all this good stuff. And he was like, "Let's do this. I'm moving. I'm out of here." And he did. He moved to Argentina, and he's grows grapes in Mendoza and stomps on them and makes Malbec wine now.
So he's still down there.
And we wrote a business plan, and we were trying to think about who to shop it to. And one of our mentors and advisors was Steve Cruz, the guy who taught me to spay cast. He was my boss at the ski area. And I ran by that business plan by him going, what do you think? And he goes, well, I think you should, instead of like paying interest, you should probably like think about just giving away guide trips. And I go, oh, that's a good idea. So he goes, make some changes and think about who you want to submit it to. And I'm like, I got a couple guys that I guided that I had in mind to submit it to. And literally I took it back to Steve and said, check this out. What do you think? And he goes, everything looks good. And he wrote me a check.
No kidding. Wow.
And I was like, oh, no, I got the money now to buy this business. And Steve's idea was, look, pay me back monthly. We'll get it on a payment program. And then for the rest of my life, I'm going to have free guide trips with my family.
Oh, there you go.
So his kids were, Sid's his wife and his kids were really young. And we basically did trips with them every year on the John Day for bass. And we watched those kids grow up. Dan is one of the sons. He's in Argentina right now, hanging out with John Eklund.
No kidding.
Well, Kiki's still in Mexico.
Kiki's in Mexico, coming back to work for us this summer.
Amazing. Yeah, exactly.
They're growing, and
they're just good people.
What a story!
Just hearts of gold. So
kind of full circle. There with everything.
What do you think is the take home from that whole story? I mean, it seems like that you were just in the right place at the right time. But
I guess when doors open, you can either walk through them or walk away from them. And we walked through them.
That's right.
Not knowing where they led. You know, we just opportunities that we took advantage of.
It's funny. I interviewed Oliver White. It recently came out, and he was telling the story about he has a lodge in the Bahamas. And it was kind of a similar story, a similar deal. He was in this right place, and this guy came out of nowhere and basically said, do you want to work for my hedge fund in New York? Out of nowhere. And he did it. He didn't think about it. He was like, did it. And because of that guy taught him a lot about business and all this stuff. So it was like the best decision he ever made. And I think, that's the great message. Just don't be afraid to just take a chance and go for it. Because how long has it been since that time that you bought the business?
We bought it in 2003.
So 16 years.
16 years.
16 years. Wow.
And we said we were going to sell it in 10 years.
That's right. So what happened there?
Well, we didn't.
Are you going to sell it still in another 10 years? Or
10 more years we'll sell it.
So what do you think? So John Eklund? He was the person you bought it from.
He started at Little Creek Outfitters in 1983.
Oh, in 83. And where did he start? What river was his first river?
Grand
Ron, John Day. Those rivers. He used to go and work for Patty Riley in Argentina. And Patty Riley invented fly fishing in Argentina. You know, she was the first American to go down and start the guide thing. She's just a legend in our minds.
Amazing woman.
And John used to I think the story of how Little Creek got its name was John would go down there and he would fish this little lake on his days off with this old Argentinian, and the old Argentinian would go, every time John would catch a fish, he'd go, "How you like my little lake?" And John would go, "I love your little lake, man." And John would catch another fish. And the Argentinian would go, "How do you like my little lake?" He'd go, "I love it." And then John invited him up here, and they went fishing on, the John Day, and they catch a bass, and John would go, "How you like my little creek?" And the old Argentinian, "I love your little creek." And so John named his outfit Little Creek Outfitters.
There you go,
from that.
Yeah, that's cool. What do you think is the one thing the biggest thing you learned from John? Anything that sticks to you?
Well, pay your guys on time. Provide food for your crew.
Because you have guys.
These are the things I didn't get. Felt like I didn't He never learned to spell my name on the paychecks. It's
kidding.
Marty Sherman,
really?
Or whatever. And it's pay your guys. Have good. He had great food. But there wasn't always enough for the crew.
So where did the great food come from? Who was making the great food? Is this so on your trips? Are you making Cooking, you're doing everything?
Yeah.
Setting up tents?
We have a gear boater.
Oh, you have a gear boater?
Yes.
So you have somebody to help
and,
set up things.
and well, the gear boater, I should say, runs the program.
His name's Rob.
Yeah, Rob, who's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just,
He's really
good. We have such a solid crew.
Yeah. So Rob comes down, gear boat, sets up camp ahead of time. So when you get there, everything's good to go. And does he cook too?
Yeah.
Oh wow. So he does everything.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Rob comes from a background of outfitting great rivers, great places.
Yeah.
He spent 7-8 years on the Middle Fork of the Salmon. Used to be a Helfrich guide on the Rogue. He's a really great guy.
That's cool.
So he's high quality human.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, okay, so that was a good story, by the way. That's cool. And
Marty tells great stories.
Yeah, no, that's all. I mean, because I remember, I've heard about your business, and I never really made a connection, but that's the cool thing. Now I have a kind of the story. So the spade casting, you jumped right into it. Did you start single hand casting, or did you also start right in spade?
Yeah, so I was single hand casting for a couple of years, but again, it was just a part-time thing. It wasn't my passion because of snowboarding, and I moved up to Alaska, and that's
and
where
what were you doing? Moved up there to
snowboard.
Oh, to snowboard.
So again,
wow.
I was following the ski areas and the best snow.
Okay.
So I moved to Girdwood, but I was also commercial fishing. I started commercial fishing on crab boats, and so that brought me up to Alaska as well.
Yeah.
And but I wanted to again, fishing was still just a part-time recreational thing, and I went to a garage sale, bought my first rod. It was a Shakespeare with a Fenwick reel, and I would go out to the Kenai and trout fish, during the off season, and then in 2001, when I saw Marty spade cast, was when I became intrigued by spade casting,
Gotcha.
and then I started dabbling in that, and it just got a hold of my heart, and I just love it, and so what
was the transition from single hand to spade? What was that like for you? Did you pick it up?
Well, it's funny why. So in 2002, really, when I started spade casting, and I caught my first steelhead, I was hooked, and all I wanted to do was spade cast. And even though I would guide bass trips in the summer, so I would guide bass trips, and we would switch to single hand casting for 2 months. But I always just wanted to go back to spade casting.
And are you fishing out of the boat when you're doing the bass, or it's all
boat? So fishing,
it's all boat.
So all boat with the bass fishing with a single hand, and then steelhead fishing. We're not fishing out of a boat. We get out and walk and wade the runs, and it's funny. I became a better spade caster because I was spending more time with that, and that's really what I wanted to do. And I would go back to single hand casting. In fact, the first I went on a trip to Louisiana to go red fishing, and that was the first time really saltwater fishing. And I was trying to cast this 8-weight, and I sucked. I'm like, this is terrible. I couldn't do it. And I realized, whoa, I need to get a little bit better at this. And so single hand casting. And so I ended up eventually taking a lesson with like Tim Rajeff and Catherine Hart.
Oh wow!
And they ended up teaching me a lot. But I have a hard time with single hand casting because I'm left-handed, dominant left-handed, and I broke this arm 3 times skateboarding.
Jeez.
And so I never knew it until Tim pointed it out, that as I come back, my hand naturally hooks behind my head.
Oh yeah. So
it throws off my single hand loop. And so because I have a hard time flattening this left hand. And so single hand or spade casting is just a lot easier on my body. I single or spade casting, and it's just easier on my body, easier on my shoulders. And I love it.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the cool thing about the spade is that I've done a lot of single handed. I know what you mean. You got an 8-weight rod out there and you're trying to cast as far as you can. You're getting tired. It's feeling heavy. It's just not a lot of fun. That's the spade cast is so much fun because anybody can grab if you do somewhat. Actually, you don't even have to be a great spade caster to shoot the line a pretty far distance. I mean, that's kind of how I've been able to do it. I'm not a great spade caster, but I can cover lots of water because it's just a big,
It just takes a lot of practice and takes practice, but you got to let the rod do the work. And a lot of people tend to, when they come out and start learning, they you know, they want to do the work. They want to force the rod.
Yeah.
You can't force a two-handed rod. You can't force a single hand.
No.
You know, you gotta learn the proper cast, and it's letting the rod load. And so
what was your, you know, from that to this Spay-O-Ram, the championship? I mean, a lot of practice, but what does it take to become, you know, at that level? I mean, besides the practice, what else?
Just dedication, and I think a little bit of. So I come from a kind of a competitive background, but also being raised with 3 other sisters.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we were always.
Were you the oldest?
No, second to the oldest.
Second to oldest.
So
Okay.
so definitely there was, you know, a little competition there.
Yeah.
But and then in snowboarding I competed. I competed in I was actually at the Red Bull Extreme
No kidding.
competition.
Wow.
That was one of the first big mountain competitions.
What year was that?
I can't even remember. 90.
Because there's
Mid-90s?
probably some videos out there, right, of that stuff?
Yeah, there's I've never found a video, just an article.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so
So I really I thrived off competition.
Yeah.
I like how it pushes you to that next level, and it challenges you. It challenges, you know, it challenges your ability, and it just makes you get better. But it's also feeding off the other competitors.
Yeah.
You know, that's
so that's casting. What about competitive fishing? You know, USA, Team USA.
Oh,
What, you think that would be something you would be into?
I actually, so part of me, I like the competitive bass fishing. I think.
Oh, right. You mean like
I think that would be
just
hoot.
gear fishing, the competitive.
Well, if they ever had like a fly fishing, I'd want to do that.
Yeah.
I've thought about going to Florida and entering some of those competitions.
Sure.
But you know, I'm like, well, I'm not a tarpon fisherman, but heck, why not?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, exactly.
it's just getting out there and having fun.
Yeah.
And it's the camaraderie.
Yeah, but the competition, that is something you enjoy, and you've been to the top level. I mean, in the skateboarding, I mean, you've done all these extreme sports. Mm-hmm. Fishing isn't quite as extreme of a sport. What do you think is the reason?
Well, I think just age. Well,
yeah, right, exactly.
You know,
you can't do a half pipe like you used to.
It's oddly similar, though.
But really? It is very oddly similar.
To what? Oddly similar to
lifestyle.
To
like the
lifestyle.
Just sleeping in the dirt, chasing hatches, chasing powder, chasing skate spots, chasing.
That's right.
You know, the lifestyle is very similar.
Very similar.
And to say there's no adrenaline in fishing is crazy.
And there is adrenaline.
Yeah.
And I now compare it, like, again, just big mountain riding and standing. There's the soulfulness of it.
Yeah, that's right.
That is very comparable. Yeah. And so standing on top of the mountain
and
looking down on a chute that's just powder, and just going, savoring
just
in
knowing
that.
that you could die potentially.
Well, but it's not necessarily that. It's just looking around and being a part of nature, and just knowing that there's just something in front of you to look forward to. And catching a steelhead, it's like standing in the water, and just being a part of that process. Yeah. It's
a skill sport.
It
takes skill
and
to cast a double-handed rod. And
there's a lot of soul.
If you don't think so, hand one to a beginner with no instruction and watch them.
Because
it is not easy.
Yeah.
It is not easy to learn to spay cast. It's not easy to get good at it.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy to go from being pretty good at it to really good at it. It's not easy. Like you hit these plateaus and you get stuck on these plateaus. Right. You know, one of the things that sticks people is, you know, they get muscle memory. Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Until it's not.
Right.
Because it becomes bad.
Yeah.
Because you need to learn to break muscle memory to get to the next plateau.
That's right.
Because you got to do something different. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things that happens is, you know, as an instructor, we tell people, slow down, go smooth, take your time, slow down. And then they want to cast far, and you can't slow down anymore. You have to give it some power.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit hypocritical. It's like,
slow down until you need to speed up.
And then getting to that next level is hard. Yeah. And so where the comparison to snowboarding or skateboarding comes, it's like there's a tremendous amount of progression that happens. And that's why we love snowboarding so much. It's like, look, we got better.
That's right.
Oh, look, we're getting better again. And then you're getting to another plateau, and you're stepping up to this levels of like getting really good at snowboarding or skateboarding or fly fishing.
Yeah.
And when you said age, that's true in skateboarding and snowboarding. It's like eventually you stop getting better.
Yeah. Oh,
and it doesn't become as fun.
Oh,
It's not fun getting
right.
worse at
There you go.
anything.
Yeah.
But fly fishing, I never see the opportunity to stop getting better.
No. So you think you feel like you're still improving?
Yeah.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, you're always improving.
It might not.
There's
just
always something to learn.
Yeah, it might not be casting.
Yeah.
But steelheading, the rivers change.
Yeah.
The gravel bars shift.
That's right.
The floods change the log jams. It's like, you got to relearn rivers. You got to relearn new spots. You got to struggle through slow fishing or hard fishing. And steelheading's hard, especially with the swung fly.
Yeah.
And there's little things that you can always go into to reinvent yourself a little bit. Like from Mia just like deciding one day she wanted to be a distance spay casting competitor at a world champion level. It's like, and now what's next? Well, what's next is a kids camp.
Oh yeah.
What's next for me was building a bamboo rod.
Right.
Like,
yeah, that's right.
I didn't know how to do that 5 years ago, and I
Mm-hmm.
started getting interested in it.
Yeah.
And I've gone through this whole process to a point where I can build one on my own now.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of mentorship and learning. And it took a lot of, but it's like, those are the little things that you can always get better at is diversification. Build a bamboo rod.
Yeah.
Build a wood drift boat.
No kidding. Have you done that?
No, but
No.
I'm excited about the one we are recent owners of.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you have a clackcraft out there. What are your other boats? So you have a wood boat? Or
So we have a Rays River
Oh,
Dory.
yeah, Rays, yeah.
It's got it's cool history. It used to be a Rogue River boat. But it was a Denny Hewson boat. It was a legend Rogue River guide.
Okay.
And Ray's boats are really cool boats, and it's a really neat boat.
Yeah.
And then so we have a 1652 Special Rogue is what it's called.
No kidding.
And then we also have a 16-foot double-ender aluminum boat that was built by Briggs Boat Shop, the Rogue River Boat Shop.
Oh,
And
what's
so
double ender mean?
double ender is like pointy on both ends.
Pointy on both ends. Yeah. Oh, wow. And why
Yeah.
why the pointy on both ends?
Well, this is kind of a design that was developed by Martin Linton. And so if you know who Martin Linton is, Martin Linton's like the godfather of running dories down the Grand Canyon.
Oh, yeah.
He's like,
That's right.
there's a video, go check it out
Yeah.
if you get a chance.
Okay.
Just
Amazing.
search Martin's boat.
Cool.
Well, this is one of Martin's boats. Like,
Yeah.
this is one of his designs that came out of the Rogue River
Gotcha.
Briggs shop. And most of those boats were made out of wood, but this is an aluminum one. And it's just got cool shape, cool flair to it. It doesn't
It's
take
cool.
waves in on
So
big water.
wow.
It's
awesome
intended
for
for big water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big
And
one.
that's, with fishing, I'd say that's, for me, it's the next level is being a better boatsman.
Yeah.
And that's, I love being on the water
Yeah.
and running rivers is such a challenge
Yeah.
and water humbles me. And so,
Yeah.
being able to row bigger whitewater is like another skill in itself.
It
And
is.
for me, that's like the next level.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun. We've been, floating the Rogue. I keep putting
Through like the wild and scenic.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we've done that now a couple times.
Yeah, that's
The
technical.
Oahe River,
Oh, yeah.
river that I just got a permit on.
So the Oahe
has-
isn't that the one that has like Killer Fang or maybe not Killer Fang? Isn't there a couple you have to portage on the Oahe?
Well, yeah, up in the upper part.
Okay.
So the section that we'll be running, it's about 50 miles, and there's it's a lot of consecutive class, 3s and a couple 4s and 2s, and
A lot of challenging rapids there, and the Rogue is really great. And all these
Yeah.
rivers are really
there's
great.
so many
Yeah,
rivers,
the Rogue is
and
amazing.
and
I
that's-
guess what we're getting to is there's a lot of layers.
Yeah,
there's
there are.
there's
Like
so
a lot of
Yeah,
layers.
yeah.
it isn't
Yeah.
just fishing.
Yeah,
If
It's
this
not.
this is our lifestyle, and
Yeah.
there's so much more.
Do you think you're both guiding and running this business? Do you see that changing anytime soon as far as getting out of the guiding, maybe doing
No.
other things?
I'm hoping to retire
Yeah.
at 64, 65.
Yeah, and you'd be happy if you just guided
Yeah.
the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to plan retirement.
Yeah.
Like we
Right.
have
Yeah.
IRAs and a financial advisor at a
Yeah.
bank,
Right,
where we
right.
go in and we
And-
sit down.
Yeah.
And
That's-
we're just getting going on
Yep.
this.
That's
Like,
just recent.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
like-
I know.
but it's
not
like
an easy
we
thing.
gotta get it together. We
Yeah.
gotta figure out how to retire because
Right.
Most of the guys I know don't.
And I and again, I've talked to, I think this is episode 75, so I've done 75 of these things, and I've talked to a bunch of people, and this has come up occasionally, and some of them, some of the people said, there was one plan where it was like he was going to get a camper and just go around and do the show circuit during that season, and then live in Mexico during the off season. So there's like a bunch of different ways you can do it.
It's it's a very romantic lifestyle.
Yeah.
And and for a family to do it, where both people are guiding is challenging.
Yeah.
It's very challenging, but I would have, I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
I just resigned from a stable, great job with a nonprofit called the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, and fabulous organization, and so that I could start working on this again full time, because I want to be on the water more.
Yeah.
I want my daughter to see me, just getting outdoors. I want to, be able to influence her into appreciating this lifestyle more, and to follow her heart.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. That's pretty much what you guys have done. Followed your heart, your passion.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's not easy.
Yeah.
We've worked really, really hard to get to where we're at.
Right.
And a lot of people these days, there's a lot of people wanting to be guides, and it's really
what do you tell those people when they ask you on social media or somewhere out there, like, you have any tips for getting into this whole thing?
Just work hard.
Yeah.
Really work hard. Your reputation is everything.
Yeah.
Be honest. You just got to be honest to people. If a river's blowing out, call them up, let them know the river's blowing out.
Yeah.
You want to know my advice?
Yeah.
Work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And work,
that's well established.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And communicate with them about taking over one day.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Is that a hint?
Yeah.
No, maybe, but no, I'm being honest about it. Like, I don't know how. I don't think we would have made it if we didn't buy an existing business.
Yeah,
and to be fair, we can't guide on these rivers without buying on somebody's business, because they're SRPs.
Yeah.
They don't transfer. You can't just go get a permit. No. You have to buy something.
Are the permits on the John Day Grant, are those all specific to those rivers?
Yes.
It's not one BLM permit for all of them.
No. Yeah. No. And so each one has.
So when you bought the business, you paid for. You got those permits came with the business.
They transferred the permits over to our name.
Exactly.
Based on us buying the business. See, these permits aren't for sale.
No.
You can't sell these permits.
No, you can't even buy a permit right now if you wanted to.
Mm-mm.
You can't buy a permit ever. It's like illegal.
Oh.
You can buy a business, though, that they will transfer.
Oh, yeah, you can't buy the permit.
So the only way that any of these younger guys can get a Deschutes business going is to buy somebody else's business.
Or to work for somebody and then get, eventually, like you said, work for somebody until they sell it.
Yeah, and so my advice is to work for an established outfitter, and then try to find your way to run the business.
Yeah.
If you really want to make it, if you really want to do it for 30 years or 20 years, if you really want to be a guide, and if you only want to do it for a couple of years, same advice.
Yeah.
Just go to work for somebody that's an outfitter. But trying to just do it on your own from scratch, almost impossible.
Yeah, it is. Are you looking to find any guides to help out with you?
We're always looking.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, we have a busy calendar.
Yeah.
And we're always looking for subcontractors, some guides.
Yep.
So we're looking for guides that have their own guide license.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for guides that have their own insurance. And we're looking to hire them to work on trips with us.
But we do have a solid crew of people that have been
have
been coming back and doing trips with us for quite a lot of years. Corey Coffey's been coming on trips with us for probably 8-9 years now. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, we're definitely a good hour and 20 or somewhere. We've been chatting here. I've got a few more questions.
Another hour if you want.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a few more. I have a little rapid fire round I usually do at the end, but before I get into that, maybe we can just jump through a couple of these a few of the tips, and then just some random stuff. So I always like to ask the kind of the top 2 flies, top 2 tips, top 2 resources, things. Do you maybe on if you both want to just come together with maybe your top 2 steelhead flies for the John Day? Maybe think about maybe one each. Do you have one off the top of your head you want to share? Or maybe it's just your go-to steelhead fly that you throw on there.
You go ahead.
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
Well, I could say
Did you say you go ahead and then interrupt me?
Yeah, I did.
She was trying to save it.
Am I going ahead?
Go ahead.
So, steelhead are a funny critter.
Yeah.
Right? And they'll eat anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times I have a new fly every year.
Yeah.
And I just like kind of feel it out in the beginning of the year and something works.
A new fly that's kind of the same color and size and stuff
No,
that
I
you've
don't know,
always
like,
are just
I mean, yeah.
totally different.
But so early season, I got to have a skater.
Yeah.
I love seeing steelhead eat a surface fly skated across. Yeah. So.
And why early season?
Well, because the water temperatures are sufficient enough. Yeah. So late season, you're not going to have as good of odds. You're not going to probably even fish a skater late season.
Yeah.
So you're going to fish a skater early season.
Yeah.
So I got to have a skater.
Okay. And what would a skater pattern that somebody might find on Googling up?
You know,
or anything you want to share.
Sure. I mean, just the I've gotten to a point where I'm just down to one skater pattern, and I don't know what it's called, but.
It's got some foam on it.
It does. It's got deer hair, and it's just the typical.
They're all kind of the same.
Yeah.
It's just a foam thing that's going to wake up.
It's really easy. You don't have to tie any special knots on it. Yeah. You just like tie a knot on it, throw it out there, and it skates.
So if we on your website, and I haven't been there to it, but if I was to go there and look at the front page, I mean, is it more of a kind of here's how you book your trips, or do you guys like blog and do all that stuff there? And do
we did a blog for a lot of years, and it really was a beneficial thing to us. But it seemed like the culture of how people interacted online changed a lot with Facebook and Instagram and that stuff. So we kind of like the blog was a lot of labor. Like we put a lot into it. So
you were writing, and
but we haven't done that for years now.
Yeah.
But it's still out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just put a new post up.
Okay, so you can go.
You did?
Yeah, just to see if anybody noticed.
Oh.
Yeah. There you go.
No one noticed.
Yeah. Well, somebody did. You never know. All right. So a skater, and then do you have?
Well, I like green butt skunks.
Yeah. So a green butt skunk, not a skunk.
No.
Because this is so funny. Frank Moore, who I interviewed. Yeah. I'll put a link to the show notes to some of these things we're talking about. The Frank Moore was great in person, just like this. Yeah. Had him and Jeannie here doing the same exact thing, which is pretty kind of cool.
They're like heroes to us.
Oh, heroes! This is great because you're actually the second couple.
Yeah.
But I asked Frank, I was kidding him. All right, what's your same thing? What's your favorite fly? And he said a skunk. And I said a green butt skunk, and he got mad. He's like, yeah. He was like, no, not damn green butt skunk.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And he explained how the guy that invented the green butt would also fish the north. And
Dan Callahan.
Yeah, Callahan exactly invented it. But the funny thing was, it's a long story short, I went up that night, put on a skunk, caught my first north on plus.
Oh, that's so awesome.
But so green butt skunk.
Yeah, I just like it. It just seems to work. It used to be a muddler, and then, I don't know, muddlers just weren't catching steelhead, so I changed flies, and the green butt's been very effective. And just your traditional
green butt with kind of low water, kind of sparse.
Yeah, and I like the smaller the better, so like a size 9, 10. Like I like small really small flies on the John Day and the Deschutes. That's early season when the water temperatures are, let's say, in that 50, 55 degree.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. And
can I get my second fly?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So here's a tip at the same time. Good. As the John Day water temps get colder in mid-November, you're going to want to fish a leech. You're going to want to get that thing down a little bit, but the problem is the water flows are so soft that you can't use a sink tip there. So you want to use a clear intermediate sink tip.
Gotcha.
Because it's going to turn over on a Skagit line, a leech really good.
Okay.
So what I like is, I use like a different one every year. Yeah. There's a fly called the Sylvanator.
Sylvanator, okay.
Sylvanator was basically invented.
Yeah,
by Brian Sylvie.
Oh, okay, not the Silver Hilton.
Not the Silver Hilton. The Sylvanator. It's a bunny leach with a bead head on it.
Okay,
and that's pretty much it.
A black bunny leech,
or a gray, or blue, or purple, or a red. A red one works good there. A black one works good there. A purple one. A purple with a pink head. Black with an orange head.
So just a leech that's going to basically get down a little bit.
Get down a little bit. And I used that for years on the John Day. And last year, I think I was using this, what's Brett's? Oh, Klamath Intruder.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Klamath Intruder was like my go-to leech
Okay.
last year. It's just a very small leech.
Yep.
That one was a little less weighted.
Like how small, how long of a leech?
Oh, it's like an inch and a half.
Yeah, so a little small leech. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Sylvanators aren't very
Yeah.
long either. You can link up to that somehow,
Gotcha.
I'm sure. But
Okay. So you're using that intermediate, and I know
Mhm.
when I talked to Simon Gosworth, I had him on, and I think that was one of his things, was his favorite line that he loves is that little intermediate.
Mm.
I'm not sure which, well, obviously Rio, but they all probably have them. And he
Mhm.
said that, a lot of people just use their dry line, which I do too, but he said that intermediate line he loves, especially on the
I love
shoots
it
too.
too.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's
Because it
great
just gets
line.
you a little bit
It's one of the
below.
most overlooked
Yeah.
tips.
And you also have,
Pun intended.
yeah, totally.
Tips that you could use.
It is a good, and you have a perspective on sinking lines, right? I think Tim was telling me about that. How you don't go too deep too often, right? You like to stay a little bit more. Can you speak to that a little bit about how you're? And I don't know if we're talking about winter fish.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, because most guys, when you think of winter, well, not most guys, but some people think, get down those fish. They're cold. They're hunkered down. You got to get it right, kind of right there. But do you think you have to get it right there within a foot of those fish, or
depends on the conditions.
okay? So if you're getting a sandy, I'm not sure how much the water temperature fluctuates. You're saying if it's a little warmer or a little clearer, you might be able to, those fish might go up a little further.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's complicated, right?
Yeah.
It's complicated because steelhead behavior is based on a lot of limiting factors. Okay, so temperature, water level, all these factors. Yeah. Let me just put it simple. If the water is high on the sandy, now all rivers are built differently, but the sandy, I'm talking about the sandy,
right.
I'm talking about yesterday.
Okay.
I'm talking about all winter long, February, January. On the sandy, when the water level's high
and off color?
Yep, the water temperatures are warmer.
Oh yeah.
Always.
Oh wow.
Okay. So and the fish are living in 4 to 6 feet of water, 15 feet off the bank. It's perfect.
Huh.
You do not need to be heavy in that 4 to 6 feet of water because it's soft water.
Right.
So you need to be able to swing all the way into where the fish are.
Yeah.
Based on that, if you're using a heavy tip, you're hung up before you get to the fish.
That's right.
In my opinion.
Yep.
Now, when the water's low and clear on the sandy, which it was most of all of February this year, and some of them, most of March too, probably. So when the water's really low and really clear, it's cold. It's always at its coldest, and the fish are always deep, 10 to 15 feet deep. Wow. So I use really heavy tips to get down into those fish when the water's low and clear. It's the opposite of what people might think.
It's kind of counterintuitive, yeah.
But it makes sense if you really think about the behavior of the fish.
Right.
So high water, light tip.
There you go.
Low water, heavy tip.
Which is good. So you're not fishing the heavy water with a light tip. You're finding those little or the softer water
on the
fish.
inside where those fish are laying in the heavy high flows.
So you might be swinging around a big run, but you're fishing the inner
inside.
Gotcha.
You see that heavy flows in those trenches on the sandy. Well, the fish don't want to sit out there on the heavy flows.
No,
they're going to be on the inside, nice soft water.
Right.
And so the moral of the story is most of the fish that we catch on the sandy in the winter are on light tips.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the water came up. It was beautiful. Yeah. We caught a unweighted fly on 7.5 feet of T10.
No kidding.
This is a light tip.
Yeah.
That's what we got to fish with.
But in the summertime, it's we're fishing floating lines.
Yeah, it's all floating.
Yeah.
Even and no intermediate, or you?
Nope. Yeah. No, we just stick to floating from end of July all the way through middle of October, end of October.
Yeah. And then we go to those intermediate tips late season, John Day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. So so we got the 2 flies. We got the 2 tips. I guess there's a couple of tips in there. And then 2 resources. Do you have any?
Wait, do you have your second fly?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, what was your second fly?
Well, I said a muddler and then...
with the muddler.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Do you have 2 resources that you would recommend if somebody wanted to learn about John Day, specifically steelhead fishing? Is there anything online? Is there books? Is there videos? Anything you know of that could help somebody?
I recommend you go buy Sean Gallagher's book called Wild Steelhead. I do. It's got a whole chapter.
Yeah, it does.
That we talked about the John Day in it. So that's a good resource.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of
nice.
That's a neat one. But online, I don't know that there's anything that that I would recommend.
Yeah, because the John
Well,
Day isn't a very
there is a resource. The BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, Prineville District, they have John Day maps. And those maps are going to give you access points and where public land is and where private land is. And so, and it lists history and talks a little bit about fishing and such, but that would be a good resource.
Okay.
There's a lot of private land on the John Day that you need to be aware of. I use Onyx Maps. You know?
Onyx Maps?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a hunting app
hunting app,
tells you where, if you're standing on
private
public
land,
or public land. Yeah.
That's a good
and that's a good resource. Another good resource is dam counts coming up. The Bonneville Dam.
What are good
John Day Dam.
What are good counts to know? I guess it's coming over the. Well, is the John Day comes in below or above the John Day? Dam?
Just above.
Yeah. So you know. So if you look at John Day counts, what's a good count to know on John Day?
I don't know. I just watch it just out of curiosity. I don't know.
So it's not because you can look at the Dalles, Bonneville, and really be like, okay, you can get a feel for what's going to the Deschutes.
See, but the problem is a majority of the run crosses over the Bonneville, the Dalles Dam, then the John Day Dam, months ahead of when we fish it.
We fish it.
So those fish come into the John Day pool.
Yeah.
They go, and there's a lot of data based on pit tags, where half the run goes up above.
It keeps going.
Keeps going.
To the Snake River.
And then half that run comes back.
Yeah.
So, and then a lot of fish sit in a closed section of the John Day Arm, where they just sit and wait for the water to come up.
And the John Day's kind of quite a bit different than the Deschutes too, because you think of the Deschutes as this cold water refuge area, you know, where fish are turning into the lower river.
Yeah.
John Day doesn't really have that, right? That time of year, they're coming in the summer. It's warm.
There's some upwelling and there's some sanctuary water on the John Day.
Wherever there's a spring coming in, so there's little springs and fish. If they're coming in early, they'll hang out at those springs.
Yeah. We see steelhead on the John Day in June.
Yeah.
And we've also seen dead steelhead
in July.
In July that basically get trapped in that warm water. And if they don't make it to a spring, then
so probably the most important resource would be listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
And watching water levels. So USGS sites. You know, we watch the one at Service Creek and we watch the one at McDonald Ferry. And those will really teach you a lot about how gradual that river is, because it takes a lot of days sometimes from whatever event happens at Service Creek to travel that 100 and whatever miles it is to McDonald Ferry.
Oh, wow.
And so it gives you some perspective of like how long it takes that water. If there's a bump in water at Service Creek, well, if it's at 5,000 CFS in the spring, it doesn't take long to get down to McDonald Ferry. But at 200 CFS, it might take 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. And you're also in the John Day, going back to the November fishing. It's going to be it could be pretty nasty over there, right? You might get some cold.
Oh, yeah.
And are you camping, or is this like day tripping over there?
We're doing both.
Yeah.
So day trips and multi-day trips.
I guess November can also be nice. I mean, it doesn't.
It's usually the canyon is about 10 degrees warmer. I've discovered over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Than if you're
on top.
Then on top. Yeah. So we'll pay attention to like the Condon weather station. And then
take 10 degrees off.
And the canyon's usually warmer.
Or rise it 10 degrees for the canyon.
And are you during that time? And you are usually floating during those. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I've got a little bit of You want to jump to this rapid fire round real quick?
Sure.
Just a few some random questions here. So the first one, I've been doing this little thing a little bit on music, and this is kind of interesting because I can't remember when I started doing this, but I started asking people, what's your favorite maybe band or just music type, and then throwing in a link in the show notes of a video. So do you guys have any? I'm not sure. Do you have a favorite band or music type?
So
of music
recently, Ella King.
Ella King.
Yes.
Okay.
But I've been listening to her a lot.
All right.
But or Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton, really? Is Dolly Parton still going? Like,
yeah, I
is she
think
still
so,
putting music out there? Yeah. Okay. Dolly Parton. Are you the same or?
No, way different.
No.
All right.
I'm so annoyed by that music.
What if you had to explain from your perspective? What's that type of music? What is it? Is it pop or what? I don't know.
Ella King
is pop.
It's pop. Yeah.
Yeah, it's modern.
Yeah.
It's hits one.
Yeah, top 40s.
Top 40.
All right. Yeah.
Dolly Parton I listen to so
Dolly.
much.
Yeah.
I mean, punk rock.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. I'll check it out. It'll be good to hear.
I listen to podcasts and Super Suckers.
Super oh, Super
Oh,
Suckers,
and
yeah.
I love the Super Suckers
and
too.
they're kind of what are they, like an alt rock sort of?
A punk rock.
Yeah,
Punk rock country.
yeah,
country.
punk, exactly.
So,
kind of like the.
we actually just saw them a couple of months ago.
They're grunge country.
Grunge country, like not
I don't know
Wilco and some of those bands are kind of, I guess,
They're
Wilco's
fun.
more-
They're
yeah.
the original rock and roll band.
Yeah, all right.
No, they're awesome.
So we talked a little. I guess we talked a lot about the sports because I've been asking some of the, my guests about what sports they did. So you, the snowboarding, I mean, those were your main things. And was there anything else throughout your life that you kind of did that were big sports, or that was?
I'm just a Trailblazers fan.
Yeah. Oh, basketball. So basketball.
And
yeah.
I'm a Timbers fan these days.
Yep. Did you ever play soccer?
Never played it.
But our daughter did, and that got her into it.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. Did you ever play basketball?
Oh, yeah, but in 77, Portland won the championship.
That's right.
And I was just like a little boy and super impressionable. And I had like Maurice Cheeks posters on my wall.
Who was your favorite? Was he your favorite player?
Maurice?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably later was like Jimmy Paxson.
That's right.
Clyde Drexler.
Bill Walton. Actually, I had this from the very beginning. The hippies, which actually we might have talked on the. Yeah, I think you mentioned the hippies, but
speaking of Bill Walton,
exactly, Bill Walton, which is classic. But well, let me see if I have some time because I had a hippie question for you. Bill Walton is great, but the Blazers. So I guess we did cover the sports a little bit. So you get off the river. What's your favorite, your go-to drink that you're gonna have?
My go-to drink these days, I like Hendrick's gin.
Okay, gin. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just is that not a gin and tonic?
Gin and soda water.
Gin and soda. Okay.
But I mean, I'm not having them every day.
Sure. Oh yeah. But just that's you if you have.
But yeah.
Okay.
It's refreshing.
And, how about you?
Iced tea.
Iced tea.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my go-to drink.
Yep. So no alcohol.
I drink on vacation some.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't have. But I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not a beer drinker.
Yeah. No beer. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
When I had a cold, I was having some whiskey sour, hot toddies.
Oh yeah, there you go. All
right. But just not. I'm not a day-to-day. Like I get off the river, I don't have a drink.
Yeah.
Like I guide, I don't drink while I guide.
Yep.
Like we do the camp trips, I don't drink.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. Like I like feeling good.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Yeah, alcohol definitely is not your natural.
It takes away. It gives you happiness.
Yep.
For today, it takes away from tomorrow's happiness.
Exactly.
Is what it feels like.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. So we were talking a little bit about bamboo, and I think we're actually going to have to hold that whole conversation until the next one.
Great.
The next interview. So if we can get you back on sometime.
I'm no expert at it.
So maybe by then you'll be an expert.
I doubt it.
All right. But do you have a rod reel line sort of talking about companies that you guys use? I mean, we were talking about the Costa. You're sponsored by some companies and things like that.
We're competitors. So Mia is Smith. And I'm Costa.
Okay. And are they both into? Yeah, well, Costa. Yeah, they're both big time fly fishing. Do a lot of fly fishing.
Yeah. Smith. I mean, growing up snowboarding,
right?
I wore Smith goggles.
Yeah.
So I've always been a fan.
Do they make is Smith a big fly fishing? Do they?
Yeah. They've been making polarized glasses
forever. That's right. Yeah.
And Costa is just
they're huge
fishing company to the core in Florida, and been designing great sunglasses forever. And so we have relationships with both those companies, and so.
What about your rod reel lines? Do you have any companies you use?
Airflow.
Okay.
Echo.
Yeah. Yep. And then reels.
Saracione.
Well, we have a lot of different reels.
Yeah, I was gonna say downstairs. If we took a picture of your shop, it's pretty great.
We're a big Joe Saracione fan.
Okay,
so
all right, cool.
His reels are like our favorite.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. All right.
And then I just got one from my friend Mark Schamberg. He makes reels. It's a beauty.
Oh, cool. So, all right. Yeah. Are there a lot of people out there making just? Like I don't know all these names, but people are just like, okay, I'm just going to make a reel. I have some background in the
There's not a lot.
There's not a lot.
So the things you're talking about here, these are people that have definitely.
Yeah, Schamberg's a bench-made reel made in a shop, machine shop. And,
gotcha.
Joe makes his reels right there in Sandy, Oregon.
Yeah. Oh wow,
it's kind of him and Dolores. They're just have a little reel shop that
that's cool.
Makes some of the nicest reels in the world.
No kidding.
And then
what makes what's the difference between the nicest reel in the world versus because there are companies out there. I mean, lots of them that are making there's stuff come over from overseas.
Yeah,
tons of reels that probably work great.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
that Joe actually polishes.
Yeah.
Joe actually he makes
Right.
his screws.
Yeah.
He doesn't buy screws
Sure.
from somebody.
Yeah.
There's
is it
just
like-
everything is made there in the shop, and every reel is inspected by Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, he puts so much work and just passion into
Yeah.
every little piece.
Yeah.
And you can, it's again
As
coming back to
opposed to-
soul of the sport.
Yeah.
When I'm fishing a Joe reel or Cercion, like it feels right.
Yeah. That's it. And you got a fish that's
When I
screaming.
first met Joe, I really wanted one of his reels. Couldn't afford one of his reels. They're not cheap,
No.
but they're worth it. And I just remember asking him like, "Hey, if you ever have any seconds,"
Yeah.
and he looked at me and he goes, "I don't have seconds."
No, no kidding.
Yeah,
That's
because
cool.
he controls every step of the process, and there's just it's not like he goes, "Oh, the screw's messed up. I'll put it on there anyway."
Right.
No, he makes another screw.
Wow.
So there's no seconds.
So what if you were to buy one right now? What would you pay for a reel?
$1,200
$1,200. Yeah.
for a
For one of his.
Cercion.
There you go. Yeah.
So one of my prized reels is an Alta.
Oh.
It's a 4 3/4.
There's only 30 of them.
And there's only
No
30
kidding.
of them, and
Yeah.
he made it for me for my competition.
that was
rod.
the reel. Where there was one
Yeah.
downstairs we looked at. Yeah.
Yeah, so the big one. So that the last couple of years that I won Spay-Rama, it was with that reel.
Oh, no kidding.
Mhm.
And that's the one we looked at was a big reel.
it's big.
A massive
It's
reel.
big.
And we got to shout out to Gary Anderson.
Oh, yeah.
We love
Yes.
Gary's
Yeah.
rods.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you know his
I've
rods?
heard. Yeah. I know the name. Yeah.
And Gary's great, and his rods are great, and we love Gary, and he's just a good
Mhm.
friend. We love Echo and Ray Jeff
Yeah.
Sports.
Yeah.
Tim and
Totally.
Catherine are
Well, and
dear
Echo is
to
a
us.
great example of
Yeah.
because you hear you can't find a bad rod these days, and
Right.
Echo is a great example of they're not $1,200. They're more
No.
they're on the other end,
Yeah.
but they're maybe one of the toughest rods out
Mhm.
there.
I will guide and fish their lowest end
Yeah.
rods and be completely satisfied with their
Exactly.
performance,
Mhm.
their durability. I fish their high end rods, and they're all super good. Like
all good.
Tim knows what he's doing with
Yeah.
designing rods. He
Yeah,
really
he
is
does.
good.
Yeah, he's been there.
Yeah. And so who else? Who are we forgetting? Sims.
Oh, yeah, Sims. That's right. Yeah.
Not to
Yeah.
forget Sims,
Yeah.
but Sims
Yeah.
is
We
really wonderful.
Yeah.
Their waiters are wonderful.
They are.
They really treat us
Yeah.
really good. We have some relationships with
Well,
people
a
at
lot.
Sims that
Yeah.
are just dear friends of ours.
Mhm.
And so
A lot of good people.
I wish
work
I could
there.
make it out
It's
to
family.
Montana
I
to
know.
visit them more.
Sims makes good
Mhm.
stuff.
And thankfully, some of them come out and visit us here
Yeah.
and go Steelhead with us. So
That's
we
right.
love those guys. And they're really, really good friends of ours.
Cool. Cool.
Sims is great.
Well, that is about all I have. Just before I let you go, in the next 6 to 12 months, is there anything new we can expect from you guys coming out? Maybe something.
Well, I'd like to mention a book that I'm going to be in called 50 Women
Oh yeah,
Who Fish.
yeah.
And pretty exciting. It was just released really today. Written by a wonderful guy out of Florida, Steve Cantor, and published by Tom Pero.
Yep.
Wild
Perfect.
River Press.
Yeah, I'll put a link to the show notes
Yeah.
for that book. And
Yeah.
good. And then and again, going back to if they want to find you, littlecreekoutfitters.com is the best place if they want to have questions
Mhm.
or book a trip or something like that.
Definitely always happy to answer questions about spade casting. I
Yeah.
love talking
I
about
know.
it.
Well, we didn't get
Love-
into the spay. The first 30 episodes of this show were 35 were all Steelhead.
Yeah,
So we
is that
talked a
right?
lot about spay. Yeah, it was
Okay.
pretty much all. So I talked a lot about it, but there's always questions. I mean, it is a
Yeah.
struggle in the lines, and there's just. And I looked downstairs. You had. I mean, I don't know how many different lines you have sitting down
It's
there.
crazy.
For people just getting in, it's crazy. It's confusing and stuff.
We
like
try
that.
to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
So if you have to leave it, if you have to keep it simple, how do you keep it simple to somebody that just wants to get a setup and go? What would you recommend?
Gosh,
Is it? I mean, well, I guess
Yeah.
winter steelhead would be the harder thing to keep it simple, but
Well, no, it's very simple. So, for a beginner that's just getting into it, buying their first rod,
Yeah.
I recommend you go out and buy an Echo Swing.
Yeah.
It's $249
Right.
for a rod that, in my opinion, I can do the same things with
Yeah.
that as I
like
can.
a 12.5 foot.
A
7.
13-foot 7 weight is
13-foot
probably
7
going to
weight.
do everything for you. It's
Yep.
going to do winter fishing. It's going to do summer fishing.
Okay.
You're going to need 2 lines. You're going to need a Scandi line and a Skagit line. It's as simple as that. The
Right.
Skagit lines are going to throw sig tips. The Scandi lines are going to throw floaters.
Yeah.
You want your Scandi line to be 30 grains lighter than your Skagit line. There's a reason for it. The reason is the Scandy lines are load your rod with the speed of the line, and the Skagit rods load your rod with the weight of the line.
Right.
And so those two things make the difference in grain weight. So that's just keeping it simple.
Yeah.
But you need to throw sink tips for winter fish. You need to throw floating lines for summer fish. If you're just getting into it, a simple Echo rod, airflow Skagit line, an airflow Scandy line. You need some sink tips for the Skagit line. You need some poly leaders.
Yep.
Or just floating leaders for the Scandy, and you're ready to go. It's simple. It can be complicated.
Right. You can make it complicated
if you just like try to like interpret every little thing.
Yeah.
But all you need to do is have a sink tip rod.
Yeah. That's what people
and a
do.
Floating line rod, and they could both be the same rod.
Yeah.
Because loop to loop connections make it easy to be versatile.
Yep. Yep.
So you can have one rod loaded up to do all, and then if you like it, you're gonna get another rod.
Yeah, that's right.
Because there's one question I have, which is how many more rods do you need?
That's right.
And the answer is always the same.
Yeah.
Just one more.
So how many rods do you have downstairs?
I don't know.
I don't know.
If I had to guess, I'm thinking.
I mean,
you got two. I would say there is just on that wall. There's got to be. Well, there's at least 50.
I don't know. I don't think so.
well,
we'll count it.
25.
It's pretty funny because
I think there's more than 25.
Yeah.
Well, and then combine the two walls, there's at least 50.
Yeah, and now you're getting the bamboo. So you're going to eventually run out of room down there. What are you going to do?
The problem is
we need a bigger shop.
Companies come out with new models, and we got to have the new models to ride with.
That's right. Yeah, that's cool. No, that's good.
We don't sell any of them. We try to give away a few to people every year. That people that are just getting into it, friends of ours that need somebody that needs a rod. Like we give away a number of them a year, or else we'd have 100 of them down there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I think that's about all I have. I want to thank you both for coming on, and this has been a lot of fun. I think we like we talked at the start. It's hard to imagine where we could take it, and we didn't even touch on it's been a fraction of the stuff. We tried to hit Little John Day. But I mean, we have the Deschutes right here. We've got all the winter stuff. I mean, so we'll have to down the line get on again. But do you have anything else you want to leave? When you think of John Day, steelhead fishing, it's pretty simple, right? Just get over there and start swinging flies.
Get out there, start swinging.
Yeah.
So, and have confidence. The fish are there, and if they're there, they're going to take your fly.
Yeah, exactly. And if they're not, then they're
keep looking.
They keep hunting.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you guys down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.